Hello, and thanks for joining me on Working for Yourself, ZulfTalks.com podcast. This podcast is powered by trustedcreators.org. Hello, I'm Zulf, and welcome to the show. Today, we're doing something a little bit different. Working for yourself can be an interesting area. We always want to get the best from ourselves. We want to work smart, also work hard, but to an extent, not harder than we need to work. If something can help us during our work role, we want to look at that. So today I've got an subject matter expert with me. We're going to concentrate on one area of social media. However, we'll naturally progress between how we can maybe repurpose that across a few different areas. And in this episode, we're focusing on the social media aspect of it and how you can make your single post or idea that you come up with work for you in multiple ways with less effort, basically. So today my guest is self-employed, working for herself, which is ideal for our podcast, Working for Yourself, and Repurposing Strategist. She's a former teacher turned digital marketing obsessed Canadian mom of two. Her area focus is lead generation through organic Pinterest marketing. So I'm pleased to invite to the show Dominique. Hello.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here.
It's great to have you on. So I'm hoping that we can cover a few different aspects today. Mainly, I'm very intrigued with what you do because I've got a workflow that I use. And I noticed on your website and a lot of your social media that you're doing little aspects that sound interesting to me, things that a lot of us working for ourselves would think about making things better, like little productivity hacks, making sure we're making some content, we're making the best from it that we can do. So if I give you an example of what I do at the moment, and then at least that gives you an idea of where we're standing, and then we can see how maybe some of your expertise can make it even better. So for example, if I use what we're doing today, I do a lot of podcasting. So I'll speak to guests, I do a lot of talking, and that is a live session. So we actually do it in real life conversation. So what happens there is I record the episode directly as we speak, which is then repurposed for my podcast, vodcast and YouTube. At the same time, I live stream to Reddit and LinkedIn and YouTube. So already there's 5 pieces of content going out. As soon as the show finishes, during the show, I can actually take out snippets for TikTok. So I've got little sections which people are enticed to come to the full episode. And as the YouTube goes live, there's an automatic post that goes out to my blog, which then creates a quick bump from the description. So linking that into Pinterest, like you mentioned, Pinterest is more of a search engine, and that's somewhere where it can help us. How would that fit into that example workflow I've given you now, and how could that maybe bump up what I'm doing?
Yeah, I love that question. First of all, what you're doing is amazing. You're doing exactly hitting all of those pieces with that repurposed content. Pinterest is a search engine. It's a visual search engine platform, and it gets lumped in with social media all the time. But really, it's more akin to Google than it is to social media. So Pinterest is a discovery platform. So you mentioned TikTok, that's also a discovery platform where people are going to find you, they come, you funnel them in to catch the full episode and hopefully consume more of your content. Pinterest could serve that same purpose for you with the content that you're already creating. What I would look at would be those shorts that you're creating for TikTok and the shorts for YouTube. Those short videos could be going onto Pinterest as idea pins, which is kind of their answer to Instagram stories, that kind of thing.
I have a follow-up question, sorry. So from what I remember, I used Pinterest many years ago, and I used to have my photography photos go on there. Do they allow videos on Pinterest now?
They do. Yep. A few years ago, idea pins were introduced. They are formerly called story pins.
Okay.
And so you'll hear both terms. They are the exact same thing though. And they're similar to Instagram stories, but there are some key differences. One of the big differences is you can almost think of it like a little book. you have up to 20 pages that you can create that book with. It can be video, it can be static image, it could be Canva, whatever. But video content can go in there. So it's a great place to be repurposing your TikTok or YouTube videos onto Pinterest.
Okay, so when you say a book, I'm trying to imagine that. So say, for example, I post something onto Pinterest and someone's swiping through on the app on the mobile phone. Will they see one post from me, but then they can swipe through to get the 20 images or videos that play through that?
Yeah, that's exactly it. So if you think how Pinterest is, like if you look on it for, a dinner recipe, whatever, you have all the pins coming up.
Yep.
So the idea pins, they come up exactly like that in the feed. You'll see the first slide on the idea pin. And then when the user clicks into it, they can then flip through that slide if you have multiple pages, but it can be a single video. You have up to 1 minute per page in your idea pin.
So then we could have multiple 1 minute videos. So for example, what I did recently was I made a live streaming video for YouTube where I gave 10 tips. And then my editor went in and made small clips of each of those and then put them on TikTok. So in theory, we could have gone to Pinterest, had all 10 of those in a sliding fashion, 1 minute each.
Yep.
Okay. And I know already from some of the old photographs that we put up on there, it's a great place. It's surprising how many people actually use Pinterest to get ideas for clothing, different types of recipes. So there's a lot of market there. So from point of view of what you normally do, what would you say is your service? As in, because I understand you do some coaching and you do a few elements, just so I can understand, firstly, what you offer, then we'll see how it fits into the market, and then also what benefit business owners can get from it in terms of the return.
Sure. So I have kind of two sides to my business. One is focused on the content repurposing, more so helping my blogging clients create the content that they need for Pinterest. And then the other side of my business is Pinterest strategy. And primarily what I do on that side is help podcasters and course creators, some coaches, get started on Pinterest, set up their custom strategy, and give them everything that they need to move forward and have ideally a VA implement their Pinterest strategy in about 4 to 6 hours a month in a really set it and forget it strategy. They can hop on there, do it once for the month, and it's done and taken care of. So it's a super low maintenance platform compared to social media where I have to show up to maintain my presence.
Okay, so what would a real life example look like? Could you give me like an example of how that fits into like a... So for example, say I'm posting regular videos on my YouTube channel. How would you implement something like that to help me, or why would it help me? What would be the benefit?
Okay, because Pinterest is a discovery platform and we're driving traffic, what I would be doing with those YouTube videos, like we talked about, posting them as idea pins and funneling that traffic either back to your website or your YouTube channel.
Okay, so for example, if I've got a 30-minute video, would I have to have my editor go in and take out segments ready to be used for Pinterest? So that'd be the first step.
Yeah, you could post that. You could chop it up into 13 1-minute stitches. But what I would rather see on Pinterest that's going to perform better would be more akin to what you're going to post on TikTok, little short snippets to attract that attention and pull the user down the funnel, as opposed to giving them everything in one shot right there on Pinterest.
Okay, so say, for example, we were to look at something along those lines. So right now, out of my podcast, there'll probably be 3 or 4 sections that are like enticing. So those are put on TikTok, which gets people to come back to the main channel to watch the video. So from my point of view, I'm not really focused on the money side of it. It's more getting people to hear what we're talking about, because there's lots of educational things that I talk about. However, if someone is doing it for the money side of it, like for example, one of our listeners has got maybe an Etsy shop and they're making products and they want to get more eyes on to their products. Your example would be having item photographs as well as videos which are put onto Pinterest, and then those Pinterest items lead customers to their shop.
Yeah. One thing to note right now, idea pins are not linkable for everybody yet. It is coming. So at the moment, they don't link out to your website, but they do draw attraction to what you have to offer. But ideally, in the next few months, we're going to see links on idea pins for everybody that you can then drive traffic back to any URL.
Okay, because with Pinterest, you can have a normal account or you can have a business account. So the business account has the link, doesn't it? Or is that not rolled out for that?
Yeah, so it has one link for your whole account, whereas idea pins, what's rolling out is each pin will have its own link. So you could be pinning directly back to the YouTube channel, like YouTube episode, not just your channel.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Because on TikTok is a similar thing where they say go to my link in the bio, but that is one link. Unless you have a link, when you have a link tree and maybe have that broken down, but that needs more work. Okay, so that sounds interesting and intriguing. Now, is it just mainly Pinterest that you focus on, or have you looked at other platforms which are similar formats? So, for example, TikTok is the horizontal format, 9:16. So, in theory, we could use that same clip on TikTok, Pinterest, Reddit, and possibly Instagram.
Yep, and YouTube Shorts as well.
Yes.
Yep.
So, is this the case that we would put that one video onto each of those platforms, or is there some other way of doing that to make it more streamlined, like where we post to one place and it just goes to everywhere?
There are some softwares and apps that will allow you to do that. I know repurpose.ia or IO, I can't remember. It's not one that I use. They will post to all of those. Metricool will allow you to kind of push out all at the same time. The biggest thing is, even though you're taking that same content from platform to platform, that you're optimizing it for each individual platform for the end user on that platform.
Yes, that's a great point you mentioned, because it's not simply just throwing everything out there. You want each one to be perfect for that audience, because something that works well on TikTok might not work on Pinterest. Yeah. So that's where you've got your skills, where you're able to say, actually, you know what, that needs to be in this format, that needs to be in this format. That sounds really exciting, though, because you've got different demographics to fill.
For sure. Your same content can serve a bigger audience. And the other thing to keep in mind when you're optimizing is that you're also optimizing for a search engine, that you're using keywords that your audience is going to be searching for, that you're using keywords that are actively being used on the Pinterest platform. So before you really dive deep into Pinterest, it is important that you do some keyword research and know what you're looking to target. And you've likely done a lot of that research already for your other platforms, because TikTok, YouTube, Google, they're all search platforms, but it is important to just confirm what terms that audience is using.
Okay, I like that. That's a great way of thinking about it, because sometimes when you're looking at platforms, you'll think of the few big ones like the Twitter, Instagram, but as time passes, we've got these amazing other platforms coming up, and Pinterest, as you say, is getting better now to trying to integrate more links as well. Do you see any benefit from Pinterest over maybe other networks? If you were to hierarchy, maybe three, which three would you say are or is it based on what you're sharing?
It's going to depend on your content. It's going to depend on where your audience is, and also where do you like to hang out. If you've got a team and you're able to push all that content out, that's fantastic. But if it's just you on your own or you and a VA, and you do not enjoy the platforms that you're using, you're not going to attract your audience anyway, because you're not going to show up.
Yes. Yeah, that's a perfect example, because normally what you like doing, you're more passionate about, and people can normally tell, okay, this guy's genuine about it. But if you've got areas where you're not as good, is that where your services come in? So, for example, if I was to say, I liked the idea of Pinterest, however, I'm not too comfortable with it. You mentioned you do a program where you introduce into that. So is that something you do regularly and then show up to do that element of it? Or how does
so it's actually a VIP day. It's a one day. I go in, do all of the research for the account. I completely optimize the account for your target audience, get everything set up for you, and then give you all of the training, resources, support, templates, everything that you would need to take the strategy I've designed for you and implement it in just, like I said, a few hours a month once it's all in place and ready to go.
Wow, that's a lot of work you're doing. Because coming from a financial background, I used to work in financial services, and because they're really big and busy, they have their own dedicated training department. So that's pretty much what you're offering. You're offering training as well as guiding people who are not familiar with it through the process and offering support. So I think it's a really great option for people out there who maybe are not familiar with the platform or want to get started. So how do people get this service? I can put show notes to your website because I know there's ways there they can book that. Is there any additional bits you do on top of that where you can maybe look at around the people that are using the service and then saying, you know what, you've used this on Pinterest. I can see you also having this on X platform. Is there any options there?
Yeah, I do a little bit of consulting just on an individual basis, kind of what we did at the beginning of the show of this is what I'm already doing. Yeah. How could I bolster it a little bit?
Yeah.
And that's a lot of times where my content repurposing clients will come in because they're putting all their effort into, let's say, creating their podcast. They don't have the time resource to take that and then create the written content, the social media content, everything else that they would like to have in play. So a lot of times they'll pass that part over to me. We'll take care of getting that content ready. And then I can either take care of the Pinterest side, I do management packages, or we go the VIP day route and they pass it over to their VA. So it kind of branches off of what do you need and what level of support does your business need?
I think there can be a potential trap there as well, because what happens is I was speaking to a few other guests about working really hard. Where do you draw the line? Because you could, in theory, work really hard on your podcast, post it out everywhere, have loads of content going out, but then it can lead to burnout. So you have any addition? I know you mentioned you help out as part of that, but do you have any like stop marks where you think, you know what, you're doing a great job here, maybe just focus on two key areas so you're not overreaching or going into markets that don't really meet what you're doing?
Yeah, and I think it comes down to stay in your zone of genius. If you love creating a podcast and you're pouring your heart into that podcast, don't draw your attention away from that to create your content for other platforms. You've already said it. Now it doesn't actually take your personal touch to get that content moving on other platforms. Somebody else can do that for you. Like you mentioned, you've got a team that splits up those videos and gets everything out. You've already done the work of putting it out into the world, right? So just pulling back from the things that aren't really pushing you forward. I would rather see my clients put their time into creating more quality content for their audience in the way that they want to and love to interact with their audience, and let everything else kind of work in the background for them.
Okay, that sounds really exciting. I think you've covered a couple of the areas where our listeners will be thinking about now. So there's a couple of groups demographics that listen to the podcast. I've got people who are already set up with companies and they know what they're doing. However, they haven't got the insight. That's where you would come in, because they would have a budget for getting someone in to help them to train people or set up a process. So that would be something that would be great for the company owners. I've got people who are more tech savvy, the younger people coming out of college, high school, and already quite good at social media. However, they're only good with the social media that they know. So for example, during their time, TikTok, those kind of things. Pinterest has been around for a while. So people look at that more as an established area, but they're always developing. So there's new things coming out. Like I mentioned at the starting, when I was doing photos, it was only a photo site, but now they do video. So that's like a really big improvement to add videos there as well. And also the mid group where they're not quite sure if they've got the time to do it. So have you got any tips for someone who was maybe in the middle of the group, who doesn't really have the budget to get someone in, but some tricks or tips that they can maybe at least get a second platform if they're only performing on one, maybe having something that easily is adaptable? So for example, if they're doing online sales, maybe eBay or Etsy sales, and they're only sticking to that platform, is there like an easy transition to something that can help them just get a bit more exposure?
I think it's going to be very dependent on, again, each person and their business. We all know that the school of Google and YouTube is fantastic for figuring out whatever it is. So the biggest thing is figuring out, like we said, where is your audience? What do you want to do? And what do your time and money resources allow you to do, and then finding that sweet spot. So yeah, I don't know if there is a golden answer.
Yeah, I was hoping you're going to give me a golden nugget that people can listen to and think, oh, wow. But yeah, I think it's a fair comment because it's difficult to say because there's different types of listeners. Everybody has their own personal way of doing it. One thing I was intrigued about, Pinterest, have they got a monetization program now? Do they offer like funding and payments for exposure?
Yeah, they do. Unfortunately, I can't speak a whole lot to that because I'm up in Canada and they haven't opened it to us.
Oh.
So, but they do. Some of my American colleagues are doing very well with the creator program on Pinterest. And hopefully one day we'll see it up in Canada so I can discover a little bit more what's going on with it.
That's interesting. So they're releasing it by region. That's similar to the Anchor.fm podcast where you can have a podcast and if you're in the US, you can have advertisements on the podcast. But if you're outside the US, they don't allow it until they research it and develop it. So that's another thing that it's constantly progressing and evolving. But I think that might be an interesting option because a lot of people that do YouTube, for example, or they're creating Amazon affiliate links, there's potential income there. So if Pinterest offers that in your region, definitely check that out. Maybe do a search and see if that's an option there for you, because then at least the money you're putting into it, if it's for a business reason, then you're going to get some type of payback, which you can then budget and use to make it even better and hiring someone like yourself to help them with that. So there are ways of funding that type of thing. I think that's really exciting there. So have you got any other projects you're working on at the moment that you could share with us?
Nope, that is pretty much it. My attention goes to my VIP day clients and my content repurposing clients mostly.
That's really good because if someone's going to hire you, they've got your full attention, basically. Yeah. There's nothing else that you've got in your mind at the moment that you need to worry about apart from getting those people sorted out. So touch on this VIP day. How does that work? Is that something that people book in a session and you spend, is like a workshop, or how does that, if you can break that down?
It's a hands-off day for you. It's a hard work day for me, but we get it all done. Basically, I meet with you for about 90 minutes a few days before your VIP day. I learn all about the ins and outs of your business and who you're looking to connect with and what it is you have to offer to them. And then from there, I take all of that and I, like I say, design your Pinterest strategy. I optimize your account. I fully brand your account for you and get you completely ready to hit the ground running. And then you'll get a vault of tutorial videos that will walk you through everything to implement what I've done for you, as well as a month of Voxer access to me or email access where we can chat back and forth to make sure you've got everything you need to really get moving.
Okay, wow. So for those listening at the moment on the podcast, we are recording this as a session on YouTube as well as video with Spotify. So we have put up on screen Dominique's website where you can actually see some of the services she offers. There's a lot packed in there. So I can see the value add there because you're basically sharing years of experience in a session to someone. So that's very valuable. So I want to take the time to say thank you for coming onto the show today and explaining some of this. It's very intriguing for me. I know I gave you some tricky questions, so apologies. I'm just very intrigued. So I like to just ask and see what you would say in response. So I'd like to say thank you for being patient with me. And yeah.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It was a great chat.
That's been ZulfTalks podcast today, Working for Yourself. We had an amazing guest on sharing some ideas around how to basically get and up your game with Pinterest, social media, sharing. There's a different level of service you can look at getting. Not everybody has the budget, so she has got a few other options where you can do a session maybe just to see if there's certain elements you can improve on. There is a whole host of services out there. You can check YouTube and Google as well, but you're not going to get the same tailored level of experience. So it'd be interesting to keep an eye on that. I will be putting show notes in the description to give you links directly. So make sure to check those out and hop over to Dominique and say hello. So thank you for joining me here, and I'll see you on the next episode.